In the meantime, of course, we have Joe DiGenova standing by, and Joe has been very active in this particular case as he represents one of the people who has testified on this issue before Congress. Joe, the president's senior advisor says it's not really relevant what the president was doing that night. What do you think?
Well, it's from day one. They have refused to put out an hour-by-hour analysis of what the president did that day and that evening into the next day. And the reason is they can't put it out because he wasn't doing anything. I don't believe that Mr. Pfeiffer served the president well yesterday, and that will be proved over time. They're eventually going to have to put out what the president was doing. It's going to be shown that he didn't do anything, and that's what they don't want to do. This nonsense about what the president was doing and what room he was in is irrelevant. What an insult to the 4 people who died. What an absolute insult to the 4 people who died. It is very relevant whether or not the president went to sleep early so he could get up early and go to a fundraiser in the Midwest. Please.
Joe,
this presidency is teetering on such a lack of trust that it's unbelievable.
Our weekly visit with the legal analyst Joe DiGenova, who, by the way, along with his wife and a law partner, Victoria Thompson, were named Fox News Sunday's Power Players of the Week. Do we have to now introduce you as Power Player Joe DiGenova?
We're so powerful we still don't have our top secret security clearances from the Department of State. Can you believe these slugs over there are still dragging their feet?
I was going to ask what the status was on that. So have you still not retained the appropriate clearance from the State Department so you can properly represent your clients?
That is correct. They have not. Now remember, Victoria already has a top secret clearance from the Department of Justice for a big case down in North Carolina that involves top secret code word information from the CIA. We do not have clearances from the Department of State to deal with this case yet. Top secret clearances. It's unbelievable. They can do this, by the way, in 10 minutes if they want to. This is clearly a political obstruction of the top secret clearances. These people over at the Department of State, believe it or not, are worse than the people at the IRS.
So this means that you really still are very limited over the things that you can discuss with your client.
We have been told repeatedly by both clients, I cannot discuss that with you. I cannot discuss that with you until you get your clearances. The Department of State knows this. And let me just say this. When Pickering, if Pickering shows up this week for his subpoenaed deposition, he's been subpoenaed, remember. This is just wonderful. This is so rich. He wouldn't testify before the committee. He refused to show up. And then 24 hours before the hearing last week, or the week before last, he says, I think I'd like to come up now. And they said, well, 24 hours in advance is not sufficient notice. And besides, we want to prep you. We want to sit down with you and do a deposition. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But in the meantime, we don't have our top secret clearances, and this is a purposeful effort on the part of people in the senior levels of the State Department to keep us from getting them.
Well, CBS reporter Cheryl Atkinson has said that the Obama administration has perfected the art of delaying and withholding information.
Yep.
They also seem to have perfected the art of pivoting and turning this around and pointing the finger back to their accusers.
Absolutely.
And I see them doing this to you. I see it at Media Matters about you and Victoria.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm also seeing it back to the Republicans saying, whenever a question is asked, like this question about where the president was that night, or any other question about whether there was a politicization of the Benghazi event, they jump up and down and scream, well, this is offensive that you would even ask that.
And it's political.
Right,
and
exactly.
It's political. Well, of course, there's this great senator from the state of Maryland who used to be a congressman. His name is Ben Cardin, and he was on another radio station the other day, which I will not mention.
Well, that was his first mistake.
And he was asked about this, and he said, this is all political. Now, when you have a senator from a state who becomes an apparatchik, who becomes a mouthpiece for the party instead of doing his duty as a United States senator, you have to wonder, how does a guy sleepwalk through 25 years in government, accomplish nothing, and become a United States senator? Wow, what a stake.
Well, where does this go next, Joe, in your estimation, beyond, getting Pickering up there for a deposition?
Well, Pickering is a big deal because he misrepresented in his report findings. As you will recall, we called it 2 weeks ago when we said that the ARB report, the Accountability Review Board report, was a cover-up, and it would be proved to be so, and now it has proved to be so. He did not interview Hillary Clinton last week when he was on Meet the Press. He materially misled David Gregory on Meet the Press when he said, Gregory asked him, did you interview Hillary Clinton? He said, yes, we spoke with her. It was an exit interview. They were talking to her. They weren't asking her questions. There was no note-taker present. This guy Pickering, is such an arrogant SOB. He thinks he can dictate the terms of his testimony. He's not going to be able to do that. This is going to go on. This is not going to go away. Isa and the people up there have made up their minds. Boehner has finally now been convinced that they need to issue subpoenas, and they issued the first one to Pickering. By the way, that's the first subpoena in the entire Benghazi investigation, the
Wow.
one that went to Pickering. Everything else the Republicans have actually tried to be very nice. They've asked for documents. They haven't subpoenaed them. That is over.
All right, Fox News Sunday power player Joe DiGenova. He's also the man who heads up the Ben Cardin fan page on Facebook. I had no
correct.
idea.
We all love Ben. Let's put him on a float somewhere in a parade.
All right. Thanks for joining us, Joe.